Hey, all. Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Today, I want to take you to July 18th, 1863, at Fort Wagner, South Carolina, where the corporal pictured here, James Townsend, and his comrades in the 54th Massachusetts Infantry ran towards the parapet of the fort and prepared for what was going to be a life or death struggle against its Confederate defenders for domination of the works. Numbers, however, soon told against the 54th as the advance ground down. At some point during that evening assault, Townsend stumbled in the darkness and fell hard into a rifle pit near the parapet. Momentarily stunned, he scrambled, got to his feet, jumped out, and continued the fight until he was finally forced back. Now, Townsend's conduct didn't surprise anyone. He was the guy who would get up in the middle of a fight with all the hail of fire around him and fight on. His tent mate, a man named Albinus Fisher, respected Townsend for what he said was his, quote, valor, gentility, and manly deportment, an obedient soldier ready and willing for duty when ordered. A high compliment. Credit for Townsend's character is really due in part to his parents, William and Mary. They were originally from Virginia, somehow got to Ohio, not exactly sure how, but there in Ohio, in the town of Gallipolis. That's where Townsend was born free near the Ohio River. He moved with his parents a little bit later to Oxford, where at age 12, he professed religion and joined the African Methodist Episcopal Church. In 1859, when he was 18, he became a preacher. Now, then the war came. According to one biographer, quote, at the beginning of the rebellion, he had a strong conviction that the war would result in the emancipation of his race, end quote. There's another quote, and therefore he sought the earliest opportunity to take up arms in defense of the Union and freedom, end quote. He did. He went to Massachusetts because he had heard that they were arming regiments of black soldiers to fight. So he went and he enlisted. That was in April of 1863. He joined Company I as a private, soon advanced to corporal, proving his mettle as a soldier, and that's the rank he served at Fort Wagner. Townsend, he wasn't injured during that charge, but that fall in the rifle pit strained his abdomen, strained his muscles, and left him with a really serious hernia, which ended his combat service. But he wasn't ready to quit. He wasn't ready to give up. So he did give up his corporal stripes. He had no choice. He reverted to private and spent the rest of his enlistment on duty at the regimental hospital. Though he couldn't fight any longer, he was going to help the other guys in the regiment while they were fighting. Townsend remained in this role until August of 1865, when he mustered out. Then he returned to Ohio and picked up with his life, like so many soldiers did. He said later on, quote, I was a poor, untaught, uneducated wood sawyer, a poor boy with patches on a knee and a brown straw hat, end quote. He wanted to go to college. He wanted an education. And he said, quote, in that condition, I was preparing to go to college with $22.50 in my pocket, with which to pay current expenses of a college student for 1 year, end quote. He wound up going to Oberlin and stayed there for 2 years. And then he moved to Indiana to become principal of the colored schools in Evansville. That was a year-long stint. In 1870, he married a woman named Cornelia Ann Settle. That same year, he was ordained a deacon. And then over the next 15 years, he held pastorates in several Indiana cities and served on the national level with the church. His travels took him across the United States and abroad, and he became well known as a champion of African American rights. Above all else, he explained, I have endeavored to look to that which was for the best interest of my people, best for their religion, best for their development, best for their enlightenment. Indiana voters sent him to the General Assembly in 1881. He's only the second African American in the state to be so elected. During his first week as a representative, he introduced a bill to abolish racial distinctions in state laws. It didn't pass, but his strong voice for equality resulted in another bill that banned discrimination in public places. That bill did pass. Townsend kept on going. He helped mobilize Black Republican voters in the 1888 presidential election that sent former Civil War General Benjamin Harrison to the White House. Harrison, in turn, named Townsend as the recorder of the General Land Office in Washington, D.C., in recognition of his efforts to bring out the Black vote for him. After Harrison's Secretary of the Treasury died in early 1891, an editorial in the Boston Current, an influential newspaper, urged President Harrison to appoint a man of color to the post and suggested several qualified candidates, including Townsend and a name you know, Frederick Douglass. The position went to a white man, however. Later that year, Townsend left politics in Washington. In his farewell speech, he said, quote, "Wherever I shall be, look for me, well up in the line of battle, where the fight is up and where the smoke is ascending and the hurry and clash of arms are heard. Look for me there." End quote. His words illustrated his commitment to lead the ongoing fight for equal rights. They also fairly describe his actions on that July day in 1863 at Fort Wagner, when he and his comrades proved beyond a doubt that Black men would fight for freedom, would fight for the Union, would fight for the Constitution. Townsend returned to Indiana and church service. He lived until age 71, dying in 1913 of prostate and kidney failure. His wife and a daughter survived him. So thanks for listening to the story of James Townsend, an early equal rights fighter and also a fighter on the battlefield with the 54th Massachusetts at Fort Wagner. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.